Hello and welcome back to 1874. Apologies for Jacob's furious typing in the background there whilst the intro music was playing. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, here for Transfer Talk with the Athletics Aston Villa correspondent, Jacob Tanswell. And it's fair to say we did a show a few hours that I don't think anyone really cared about, in all honesty, Jacob. Once people found out that we were going to do a transfer show a few hours later, this was all anyone seemed to be bothered about. So it's worth saying it's 3:57 p.m. in UK time on Thursday. So if you go back and listen or watch this show, it's very, very real that the landscape may have completely changed by the time you listen to it. But as of the time that I've just mentioned, this is what definitively is happening with Aston Villa and the transfer market at the moment in terms of outgoings and incomings. Jacob has been so busy over the last 24 to 48 hours, constant calls, constant emails, constant on the WhatsApp and the DMs. Jacob, before we do get into it, how has it been for you in this last 24 to 48 hours?
Sure, it's not so much been the last 24, 48 hours. It's more been...
There's that phone again.
No, all I'll say is my phone is on the blink. Like I can't like switch off the silent mode. So yeah. I'm not trying to like pretend like I'm really busy. I just can't make it start. I have to keep my Wi-Fi on at the moment. But for basically the last 2-3 weeks, it's been pretty weird, really, because we were the first to report in December that Villa wanted a right back and a versatile attacker. They've obviously got those two, but then everything else comes, and Villa keeps, obviously, like I said earlier, pivoting and targets. Their first choice targets don't come, so they go somewhere else, and then they've got to deal with exits, and then things change. Philogene was only supposed to be going on loan. Now he went permanent, and the potential ramifications after that. So this month's been really crazy, really, because Villa don't know what their long-term targets are because they can't with PSR and their general recruitment. But at the same time, I've got to try and find out what's going on, and it's changed day to day. It's been remarkable. And yesterday was just a perfect example.
Yeah, hour to hour. Yesterday, a few nicknames doing the rounds in the chat. We've got Jacob Here We Go Tanswell and Fabrizio Tanswell for the sake of this show. I don't even know where to begin, really, because me and you we speak quite a lot, but we haven't actually spoken about any of this until now on this podcast. So, as I say, we probably speak every day, but yesterday was busy for both of us, and we just haven't had a chance to catch up. So we are literally doing that now on this show. So, Jacob, to be brutally honest, what the fuck is going on?
It's remarkable, isn't it? Well, that's the thing. PSR and how Villa are. They've always been publicly and privately open in admitting that every player has a price, really, and that's why obviously Duran's gone, and why there was a bid for Watkins. Watkins' departure has never been ruled out publicly, although they won't sell him now because of Duran. But at the same time, it's these things are always so fluid, and there's a lot going on. Diego Carlos, for example, Emi Buendia, these were guys that people thought and Villa assumed that would stay in the squad until the summer. Diego Carlos wanted to leave, so they pushed that ahead. They thought they got the replacement in Bade. He then didn't want to come in because he had concerns that he wouldn't play over Esri Konsa, which is rightly so. And then with Emi Buendia, they thought, right, actually, it'd be good if he's not really playing much. We can move him off the wage bill. Leverkusen are there; they're interested. They are willing to obviously pay the wages, but also they're willing to potentially buy him with an option in the summer, 20 million euros. So it's lots are going on. Plans have changed constantly, and with Duran leaving, that obviously means that Villa will have to replace up front. They'll have to obviously get a centre back in, maybe one or two, and then they have to, if there's another market opportunity, as Villa always like to say about a Gomez, for example, who they wanted earlier in the window, been a bit difficult to get so far. They'll do it. So I imagine there'll be 2 signings, but there could be more.
Yeah. So Jhon Duran, I was on Sky on Monday and was asked the question about Jhon Duran, and I said, it was a Tuesday actually, and at the time I said, no, he won't go. He won't go to Saudi Arabia. He's too young. There's no chance he'll make that move. Turns out I couldn't have been any further wrong, because he is going to make that move, Jacob. It's for an awful lot of money. You're going to explain the finances to us very, very shortly. But my first kind of instinct with this is, I understand it to an extent from his point of view. I understand it from Villa's point of view as well. But my overriding feeling with it is that it's a shame because I think he's better than going to that league at this age, and he's probably a trailblazer in the fact that he's the first player of that age profile that's actually going to make that kind of move.
Yeah, it's sad. I thought it was quite sad when Diaby left, but Duran's even younger than him. And of course, there's reasons for Duran leaving. Obviously, a lot of them, most of them are financially. That's what motivates him. But I'm not going to pass judgment on him because although I've got doubts of how he's been advised, I didn't live how he did when he was a young person in Colombia who was, in a real difficult, poverty-stricken background. And this is an opportunity that could change his and the generation's family's life. So if he wants to do that, then it's his prerogative. But from a footballing standpoint alone, I think it's a real huge chance. Although I hope in 2-3 years' time he'll be back in Europe and doing really well. It just feels like he'll be out of sight, out of mind. And, maybe Saudi Arabia's not the best place for a personality like Duran, who, always wants to be up to something, doing something. But it's curiously going to be quite an interesting tactical structure out in Nassr with him and Ronaldo, and who presses and who stands up front. They're basically going to be occupying the same place, same space, being the same person. So, yeah, it'll be interesting, but it's such a shame. But ultimately, although Villa were, outwardly adamant that he wasn't for sale and told people about that, I think there was always a price that they would want to reach, and Al Nassr reached it.
Yeah, I actually think Ronaldo's possibly one of the attractions, but for him going there to say that you've played with Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously he's not going to be around. I mean, he might be around forever, actually. That's silly of me to say. He probably played till he's 50, he's such a fine battle. But, he isn't going to be playing football forever. The chance to go and play with him, the chance to earn an awful lot of money. And look, I imagine when that money is thrown in front of you, even if you're a rich man anyway, it's very difficult to turn that down, like you say, and like I said. I think it's just a shame from a football perspective. Really, it's disappointing in that way. I think I'm with you that from speaking to a couple of people over the last maybe 48 hours is that when you're a young footballer, there can be a lot of people around you and a lot of people in your ear. And Jhon Duran has got a team of people around him. They're not looking at the bigger picture, looking at your career as a footballer. The people around you, in a lot of cases, are looking at how much money is going to come my way. And I do honestly think that that's what's happened in this case, because from a football perspective, there's no way Jhon Duran can look at that and think that is the best place for my football career. But everyone will be in his ear saying, this is the best move that you can make. But the motivations from those people isn't Jhon Duran playing on the biggest stage, playing in the best quality leagues, developing as a footballer. It's how much of a cut of that money am I going to get?
Yeah, and I think that sentiment, Dan, is shared around the change room, really. But Duran's, he's been wanting to leave Villa for a number of clubs. So and I don't think it's necessarily just because he wants to play in the Champions League or he wants to progress his career. I think a lot of it is obviously financially motivated. But at the same time, you've got to think, and I don't know Duran's camp very well. I've very rarely spoken to them. I don't know them personally, so it'd be unfair for me to comment on them. But at the same time, from what I see publicly and the comments they've made publicly, they do like to put their foot on it, and I do like to be busy in terms of flirting with other clubs. And I don't think that's been particularly helpful for Villa or for Duran trying to settle in the Midlands either. So it's not been ideal for him, but he's still a young lad, and I think he's been influential. He's had influences in his life, and he's been swayed at times. But I'm sure he'll be well looked after in Saudi, and I'm hoping that in a couple of years' time he'll come back and do very well. I just want him to fulfil his potential, really, and I think the only thing that can stop him from doing that is himself.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and hammer Jhon Duran as well. From the sounds of things as well, him and or the people around him aren't the best with money, from what I've heard as well. So that's another driving factor in this move. From Villa's standpoint, obviously they're extracting a huge transfer fee at this point. So we all know the reasons why Villa would accept it. Plus, he sounds like he wants to go. So Villa have done the right thing. His player wants to go. They don't want an unsettled player in the dressing room. They're getting a massive fee. It's the best for both parties at that point to make the move. Is there a sense of relief's probably the wrong word here. But is there a sense of him going kind of ends a disruptive influence in the camp? You know, there's been so much noise around Jhon Duran from 2 years. It feels like from the moment he walked through the door, there was always something going on. There was always murmurs of him leaving. And obviously his form this season has probably added to that. And he would probably look at it and say, well, I've done absolutely everything I can do from my perspective coming off the bench this season. And I'm probably still not the number one striker. So, you know, I want to move. And to an extent, again, I can get that. But is there a sense of almost, again, not relief, but I don't know what the alternative word to use is, that it kind of draws a line under it, and actually in a few ways Villa might be better off for this?
Yeah, I think so. I can explain more after the piece that will go out as and when the deal's announced. But yeah, I think every person at Villa has always said the same thing about Duran in terms of there's always eternal speculation and noise regarding him, and that wouldn't stop even if Ollie Watkins left and Duran started every game, because there'd still be those fluttering of eyelashes to other clubs. There'll still be his representatives flirting with other clubs too. And I think Villa just felt they couldn't really take the risk anymore in terms of can they rely on him to be the starting striker, to be there every week consistently in mindset, in fitness. I'm not sure they could. And then the noise was threatening to just consume Villa, and they actually probably got a bit tired of it. I know Villa, Emery, Monchi, Vidagani, other senior staff have really worked hard and indulged some of his maverick tendencies at times, being patient with him. They've had lots of chats with him. They've told him how important he is, given him the number 9 shirt, played more minutes. But that's not really seemed to help. But there's a few months which are quite harmonious, really, in terms of he was starting a few more games. The only question was whether Watkins and Duran could start games together, and he seemed happy. But I think since that Boxing Day red card, things have kind of fallen back into place, and there's just a point where is the message still getting through? Is Emery's Spanish-speaking staff still able to talk to him, to guide him? Is he ever going to properly listen? That would be. I think that's the question, and ultimately they thought we've got money here, tangible money that can help us regenerate the squad for a player that has only made 4 Premier League starts this season, who's still not indispensable to this team, not in the same way as Kamara, for example. We can really regenerate the squad, because we've bought a lot of players in the last window and a half, but how many have really come into the team starting 11 and upgraded the existing player in that position? I don't think too many.
Yeah, I mean, and if you watch Unai Emery when Ollie Watkins is on the pitch compared to Unai Emery when Jhon Duran is on the pitch as well, he is struggling to get the methods across to Jhon Duran, or Jhon Duran is not taking in the methods. And that's obviously, why Ollie Watkins tends to start more games, because Ollie Watkins does more for the team and he's more pivotal to the system than a firework waiting to go off Jhon Duran is. And, that firework sometimes can work as a good thing, but it can also sometimes work as a bad thing as well for Villa. And I think we have seen both sides of that. As good as he's been this season, we've definitely seen both sides of that in a Villa shirt. So I'm at the point now where I think I'm a bit fed up of all the noise that's going around. It's going to be the same every transfer window whilst he's here. I think Villa have extracted the biggest fee that I think they probably can at this point. And I would also say it's a huge fee, given the body of work of what he's actually done. As good as he is this season, there's no guarantees that Jhon Duran turns into a player worth that value. And Villa have got that value for him. It's a huge, huge profit. They've over trebled what they paid for him when they bought him in a couple of years ago. So as much as I don't really want to lose him, if I'm being perfectly honest, I completely understand it. And I think Villa have done the right thing, Jacob.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what I've been trying to explain for a few months, really. And although I've probably received some criticism from the guys, understandably so, who would prefer Duran than Watkins, I just felt like there were too many unknowns with Duran. He is a brilliant player. He's got God-given athleticism, physicality, technique, but there was just too many unknowns, and that nagging feeling that he's not as refined. Obviously, he's much younger or well-rounded as Ollie Watkins, and either of them could have been sold, right? Villa weren't immune to not selling Ollie Watkins this window, but I just feel the safer bet is to go with Watkins, which is actually counterintuitive. If you think about, Watkins is 29, you probably say this is the last window opportunity, maybe this summer as well, to get a good fee for him. But it just felt like Watkins is probably going to be better for the Villas long term, because I can't see Duran being at Villa, even if he was to stay this month. I couldn't see him being here for 2 to 3, 4 years, where I can see Watkins now doing that if he misses the window to go to Arsenal.
Yeah, that's probably a nice segue into Ollie Watkins. I mean, can we completely debunk, Jacob, that Ollie Watkins will go? There's just no way for me Villa are going to lose Ollie Watkins and Jhon Duran in the same transfer window. And if you're asking me to choose between the two, I'm 100% picking Ollie Watkins to stay.
Yeah, Villa don't intend to sell any more key players. But like Emery said, every player has a price. But right now, given the situation, I think that would have to be extortionate amounts of money to replace him. They don't intend to sell him this window. Obviously, every player has a price, like I say. But if this was more of the summer and Villa had more time to get replacement, then maybe the chances increase slightly. But right now, there's no thinking of that.
Yeah. Also, obviously the clip does the rounds of Ollie Watkins saying he'd like to play for Arsenal one day. That clip, of course, was going to come out at this point. I think it was you that reported this morning, correct me if I'm wrong, that this bid was actually made on Monday, but it only came out on Wednesday, which did feel a bit convenient in terms of timing, but the bid was actually made on Monday.
Yeah. There's still a bit of disagreement whether a bid was actually lodged or was it just interest. So for the case of semantics, I won't go into that. But the interest was registered, or Arsenal made their feelings known on Monday. Villa were angered and deeply frustrated that the leak had come out 3 hours before kickoff on what was arguably their biggest game, or one of their biggest games of the season. Sure. And it felt like they tried to destabilise Watkins, Duran, and Villa. So they were very unhappy about that. But yeah, the offer came in, or the interest came in on Monday.
Yep. So Villa, Duran goes, but when Duran goes, are now a couple of bodies short in the attacking area in terms of Buendia went. I think we all looked at Marlon as being a Diaby replacement, probably. Buendia hasn't really had many minutes, so you could argue he probably doesn't need replacing. Yeah. But Villa now in the market, people are going to know Villa have got money to spend now. How does having that money now shift what Villa were planning to do if Jhon Duran wasn't to leave? How does that change what Villa do in the rest of this transfer window, which actually doesn't have long left on it?
Well, Villa were going to be very tight. They would have been able to stretch to 25 million euros for Bade, or get the loan of Disasi or Foyth, and they were really basically just focusing on in central defence or a versatile defender. Obviously, with Diego Carlos leaving, I think with Buendia, he wasn't playing barely anyway. So I don't know if they'll replace him as such, or that'll be more of like a extra. But the key now is just obviously to replace Duran. Again, Joao Felix is the guy that Emery loves, and Emery would be his first option, and which is surprising because I don't think Felix has been very good for a few years. But when Emery loves a player and he has it in his head, he feels he can improve. And usually, Monchi and Vidagani do everything they can to sign that player. So I think it'll give them certainly more financial scope to buy or to sign Joao Felix or another player in that ilk. And they can now turn their attention to it. But it just feels like with 5-6 days left of the window, they're giving themselves more jobs to do, and it's going to be very difficult.
I learned this week at Sky that it's actually Joao Felix. Felix. Joao Felix.
Are you going to pronounce it? You're going to pronounce it like that every single time?
Well, the other day on Sky, I did it Felix and Felix. I did both. So cover myself in case I'm wrong by saying it 2 different ways. Look, we know Emery wanted him in the summer, and he chose to go to Chelsea, although he was heavily PSR based, with Gallagher going to Athletic at the time as well. He was always going to struggle to get in the team at Chelsea because of Cole Palmer playing in that number 10 position. How likely do you think it is that Villa can make this move happen? Because this would be a complex deal. This is a player that's lost his way a little bit, but there is no doubt that he's got incredible pedigree and has got incredible footballing ability. I think there'll be Villa fans that are put off by what happened with Philip Coutinho, but then, different age profiles completely. So I'm not too worried about that. But if this is who Emery wants, how likely is it that we get him?
I think it's more likely than it ever has been, or the other windows have been. I think there's a few reasons. A cynical part of me thinks Felix has exhausted all his other options. I think that's a part of it. But also there is a point where Emery, he knows Emery wants him. He knows that Monchi wants him. He knows all of that. And there's a feeling that, right, I've tried it at Barcelona. I've tried it at Chelsea twice. Atletico Madrid did it going my way. Can I be the main guy at Villa, at a functional system that will allow me to take risk on the ball? At Atletico, I was told to track back under Simeone. At Chelsea, I'm a bit part player. At Barcelona, I was involved in just this absolute financial mess where, they were in transition. It wasn't a settled squad. Can I go back to how I was at Benfica? Can I go back to being the main guy who has freedom in an attack and positional sense, and under a manager that really believes in me? And I think Felix would finally think, you know what, I will try and unite with Unai Emery.
Would Chelsea be open to letting him go? I'm assuming they probably would at this point.
Yeah, well, the thing about Felix is that he was a club signing. Maresca wasn't, involved in that one. I think other ones he's been involved in, but Felix wasn't. It was more, like you say, maybe had a hint of PSR about it, but at the same time, it was Chelsea's recruitment guys who wanted him. And right now, there's no position for him in that system, and they'd be willing to let him go.
Felix must, if he watches football in his spare time, I don't know whether he does, he must watch some of the attacking play that Villa are capable of in games. And we saw it in the first kind of 20 minutes against West Ham, and we saw it again last night at the start of the Celtic game and at various other points in the second half. He must look at that and think, I've made a mess of the last two moves. I've lost a few years of my career here by making a couple of wrong moves. Emery visibly improves players. I think 9 of the starting 11 last night were at the club before Emery arrived, which is absolutely incredible. Look at how he's improved players. Look at what Morgan Rogers has turned into in the last 12 months. Felix must look at that and think, I've got to give myself the best chance of getting my career back on track here. And the best chance of me getting my career back on track is under this manager playing for Villa.
I hope so, yeah. But no one can see or know what a player thinks, and there's been indiscretions with Felix's attitude, work rate defensively. That there was a big issue of him at Barcelona and Atletico Madrid. I don't think he's always been the most how can I say it? Not professional, but in terms of most disciplined in how he lives. So he might get to the point now where, like you say, he's had other failed moves. He's kind of drifting out of the debate. He was this wonder kid. Now he's just flatlining. Now he's still very young, but he might just think, you know what, I really need to buck up my ideas now, and there's no better place than coming to Villa. I think Rodgers, the fact they didn't sign him in the summer was actually a blessing in disguise for Villa in a way, because Rodgers was, if they signed him, he would have gone back onto the left, where people close to Rodgers were quite happy at that point that Felix didn't sign, because it meant he could stay right behind the striker where Felix would have come in, and really that helps him improve his game, take more responsibility. So I think that's how Villa, but Felix would be a really good signing. He can play as a 9, but at the same time he can play alongside Watkins as well.
I think it also helps that Villa have guaranteed their place in the last 16 of the Champions League last night as well. I think that's going to be attractive to players, because every player wants to play in the Champions League, except Jhon Duran. Apparently, he doesn't want to play in the Champions League. He wants to play in the Saudi Pro League. Just in terms of kind of attack then, Jacob, away from Joao Felix, I can't even say the name anymore. What have I done to myself? I've killed us both in this show by saying what I've said. Joao Felix, right. Away from him, what else? What other names are you hearing in an attacking position? What else do you think Villa could do?
Literally, Joao Felix is the only person I've heard as a number 10 striker. Of course, they've got other links, and they'll obviously be big fans of Matthias Telles from Bayern Munich, Cunha, Tyler Dibbling as well. But Dibbling, there's a lot of teams like Tottenham who like him. The deal could be done in this window, but more realistically, Southampton would sell in the summer. Cunha would be a difficult one purely because Wolves don't want to let him go, and they drag that out. And Matthias Telles, obviously, Villa want him, Man United want him, etc. But there's a lot of competition for him. Chelsea like him, etc. So they face a lot of competition with those players. Whereas with Joao Felix, they've got kind of a free run, maybe, unless a Saudi club comes in. And that's the one they could get to work. But it's just that sort of finance. But Chelsea and Villa have got a good relationship.
Okay. Then chances this been a loan, if time starts to run out, would that be something Villa would be keen on, or Chelsea?
Well, it depends. It depends on Disasi as well, right?
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to ask you one more question before we talk about the defence, actually. So obviously Duran's been competing with Watkins for the striker position, and we've all spoke about before how Watkins thrives on knowing that he's the man that's going to play. And I do think Duran breathing down his neck. I don't think he's been bad by any stretch, but he hasn't been quite the same as he has over the last year and a half under Emery before that. I think you can see a visible change there. I still love him to bits, but he hasn't been as effective as he was last season. I think it's fair to say. Duran going kind of gets rid of that problem, but then you do always need an alternative. Would Villa then look at the fact that Duran's gone, not going to get a dedicated centre forward in? I wouldn't expect us to do that at all. But then if they can get Felix in, if they've got Marlon who can play there as well, Rodgers could probably play there at a push as well. I actually think long term that's where Morgan Rodgers may end up as a centre forward. Would Villa look at that as then they've got that variety, and Watkins knows he's got the shirt, and that's going to be better for Villa than Jhon Duran breathing down Watkins' neck and got a load of money.
Yeah, definitely. Marlon can play up there as well, and that's been linked in terms of if Leon Bailey, for example, if he suddenly just clicks into gear, Marlon can play as a 9. Villa have never really been too worried about getting this big old-fashioned number 9 because they've always focused on getting versatile attackers that can play anywhere across the front line. That's why they signed Diaby. That's why they wanted Nico Williams. That's why Morgan Rodgers, for example, as well. So you've got all these players that can fill in and do a job. You don't want Watkins to be injured, but if he is injured for a couple of weeks, they're very confident in Marlon and Rodgers. Joao Felix if he comes to play in there. So it's more a case of versatility, malleability than an old-fashioned number 9.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of number 9 Duran shirts rocking around Villa Park.
I saw that yesterday. I was like, oh, don't ever get anything with Jhon Duran's name.
Mate, my stepson, for his birthday in November, asked for a Duran shirt.
Oh, no.
And I said to him, I'd be a bit careful with that. I know he's just signed a contract, but you just never know. And you're going a bit off recency bias. I'd pick someone who's been a bit more consistent, someone who is going to be there for a while. And he ignored me. He wanted the Jhon Duran shirt. And let me tell you, he's not getting a replacement.
How's he feeling?
Well, I haven't really discussed it with him because I was obviously at the game last night. So I haven't really seen him. My job will be to go and talk to him after this. But in fairness, that's the 3rd shirt. He has still got the home and away, so I think he'll be.
Oh my word!
Not with Duran on.
He gets spoiled. He'll get spoiled. I remember as a kid, I was allowed 1 shirt a season and no names on the back.
But 2 of them as well.
Yes. Oh my word! You had to remortgage a house to get those 3, didn't you?
Nice. You can get some discounts if you go to the right places, if you do the right things. you can get some discounts, but there's going to be a lot of disappointed people because there's a lot of Jhon. I guess it's a collector's item. He has scored goals in his Champions League font. He has scored some goals in the Champions League, so I guess it's a collector's item. In some ways, is the most positive way to look at it.
I'm hoping as well that my bosses allow me to go out to Saudi at some point to look at Jhon Duran and catch up with Moussa Diaby as well. We could do a nice little Villa round tour, couldn't we?
That'd be nice.
It'll be nice. I can't say much, but I think I am going on a trip abroad to do a piece. So if I can chuck going to Saudi in it as well, that'd be lovely. And maybe I'd brush up on my Spanish as well, because I think a Jhon Duran interview would be probably my favourite everything I've ever done.
And you have been his biggest fan for a long time. Yeah, I'm sure you're saving up for the Al Nassr Jhon Duran shirt for absolute certain. Jacob.
I'm going to get Home Ronaldo shirt, away Jhon Duran.
Yeah, there we go. What was I going to say before we went miles away from what we're actually here and what people have logged in to actually watch today? Let's finish with the defence then, Jacob. I mean, it's the walking wounded back there at the moment. Just could have really done without Matty Cash going up in last night. I mean, this isn't a Wolves preview, but it's going to be really interesting to see the back line for the Wolves game on Saturday. But what are you expecting from Villa in terms of defensive reinforcements now? And does the Duran money change that, or does that area change the same? Stay the same? Sorry.
Well, it depends how they want to distribute the cash, but it certainly gives them financial leeway to buy a player. They had set aside around 20 to 25 million euros to sign Bade, so they can use that plus anything else they want to use from the Duran money. The Sassy obviously is a guy that's everyone was talking about, but back when the reports came out, it was just he'd agreed a wage. There was nothing else to it, and it was basically just Sassy's willing to come to Villa, which is obviously great news, but nothing else. They've really moved the dial on that front. He's a player, but that would be a loan, the most likely. The question of Juan Foyth will never go away, despite there being a lot of doubts and scepticism over his injury record and his current fitness and form. But he's there because he can play centre back and right back as well. But if there's a quality centre back that they're willing to sign. I know there's been reports of Tomori, but that type of deal wouldn't surprise me at all. They've got money, and they can put it into centre back.
Yeah, JMTD is saying Tomori linked and dismissed since the pod started. So this pod's going to be a problem, isn't it? This reminds me of when we did that. Was it me and you did the Philogene pod, or was it me and Greg? And then
no, it's me.
An hour later changed from what we were saying.
Yeah, I know. This is the thing, right? Even when the other day, I went out for another run.
This is what he does in January.
And it was like, I don't know what it's time, like half 7, half 8 in the evening, and I look at my phone and everything's changed. And you're constantly on edge, really. As a Villa fan, but also as a journalist as well, thinking, what on earth is going to happen? Because literally anything could happen. You can't give any guarantees in the way Villa are going. With most clubs, they're very dead set on what they want, but Villa are very adaptable, shall we say.
So just to finish then now, obviously, let's say Villa, Joao Felix doesn't want to come again. Would you still think Villa would get an attacking player in that? They'd have to, wouldn't they? And
they have to.
What I'm thinking of in that instance would be, you'd probably look at the Premier League and think, right, we've got a little bit of money now. Who's a player that's performing in the Premier League? There's a multifunctional attacker that's playing for a club that maybe aren't as big as Villa. Do you ever see, I'm going to chuck a name as an example, in Burma. Just throwing his name out there. Would Villa then think, actually, we might be able to go and get him there?
No, because Brentford just won't sell.
Okay. That was just an example.
But that's the thing, right? I think Premier League's very difficult because a lot of the best players won't be sold this month because the club that needs them, if they lose them, it'll be so consequential to their season.
But money does talk, though, doesn't it? You'll hit a certain fee. That's what's happened to us.
It does, but at the same time, you don't want to overpay and then get to the position where Villa are still tight on PSR, which was going to be the big issue, or one of the issues had Duran not been sold. So, Kuna would be my preference. I think he's a wonderful player, but at the same time, I think going abroad would probably be, or going for a player that's not on the indispensable to the team would be the best bet.
I guarantee you, we're playing Wolves on Saturday. Guarantee you there's a story comes from somewhere that Villa are in for Cunha on the eve of that game.
Yeah.
I guarantee that happens. I'm not saying I don't know where it would come from, but I guarantee that story happens ahead of Saturday's game.
It probably will, but yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like it happened with the Duran West Ham thing all over again. Happened twice with Duran, didn't it? The first game of the season, and then the one last week.
I mean, yeah, it's just so I mean, I'm kind of glad to be away from the noise, and it's going to go away because I think it does undermine a lot of stuff at Villa. I do, in my opinion. Sorry, I got hiccups after drinking my water. I just think it undermines things every now and again. And I've been critical of him at times, probably been a little bit harsh on him at times as well. And there's been people while we've been doing these shows, whilst me and you have been talking about Watkins, absolutely slating us for backing Watkins almost over Jhon Duran. I think people are saying now that this is why I backed that horse and not the Jhon Duran horse.
Yeah, I did feel Watkins would outlast Duran, but it's a shame. And maybe if these two came about in the early 2000s, the Barclays era, there'd be no issue, would there? No. You literally just swing across it into the box. There you go, job done. But I always just felt, everyone likes to say competition's great, which it is to a certain extent, but players, especially as strikers nowadays, it's a precious commodity to have two really good number nines. I felt something had to give, and Villa did as well. And I think the fee they've got is good. It's a really big increase on the 14.75 million. They bought in 4 plus the 3 million in add-ons. And yeah, I think it was good for Duran, but at the same time, it's quite sorrowful, isn't it?
Yeah, especially for you. He's the biggest fan of.
I know. I was itching for him to come on yesterday. I thought he was never coming on yesterday. Chance. Even though there's no chance, I just thought, wouldn't it be great just to see him one more time, just run around and just cause chaos.
No, I mean, what was his last? His last act was that damp squib West Ham game, unfortunately.
Oh gosh, yeah, he did. You can't just say the last act was the Shah red card incident.
Yeah, I don't think that's helped things, has it at all? That's kind of changed the pathway of what may have happened. But this bid would have probably happened anyway, and he probably would have gone anyway. But it'd be interesting to see if he hadn't got sent off at Newcastle and he kept his place in the team, and how things have gone. Whether he would have been a little bit happier, and because you kind of do get the feeling. I've spoke about his camp being an absolute nightmare, and I stand by that. But these things don't happen without encouragement. So it would have been interesting to see if everyone was a bit more pleased with how he was faring at Villa and he hadn't got that red card, how it would have happened. Decent comment for Sean Reynolds here. Ollie has seen off 2 teammates now, Ings and Duran. He's Unai's main man. That's probably a fair way to end it, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, we can see what happens in the summer of Watkins, but I think he's been so integral to how Villa play. He misses a lot of chances, especially recently. But I think he's a really important player. But I'm looking forward to Saturday, really, mainly because it's a game, but also might get to see Andres Garcia. You might get to see a few changes as well. So, yeah, looking forward to that game, and I look forward to when this window closes as well.
I mean, I don't because I get more work in January, but I've got to admit, from a Villa perspective, yeah, it was. It's a tough one. I'm actually on Sky tomorrow, so at 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock on Sky Sports News, and no doubt that we'll be talking heavily about what's going on at Villa. If Villa fans want to join in for that one, do come and join us.
Yeah, can I just give a quick run through as well? Ozcan, I think it'll be announced early February.
Okay,
that's the one going on still. Tidiam Gomez, the one that Villa were really close to, it's been very difficult to sign him. RB Leipzig signed him. Nedeljkovic, I still probably think he will leave.
Didn't come on last night.
Even Matt Cash's injury, obviously Gauchi's gone as well.
Where's Gauchi gone? I haven't seen that.
Barnsley on loan.
I see.
Yeah.
When did that happen? How did that pass me by?
This morning. Yeah.
Jeez.
Copenhagen liked Robin Olsen, but Villa made it clear from the start that he would stay till the end of the season, and obviously that's when his contract runs out. And then, probably some young lads as well, potentially could leave permanently or on loan, but they'll be in the academy.
I keep bloody thinking of stuff. We're trying to go, and I keep thinking of things. What about Mosquera? Came back, didn't he, from Raul Union?
He'll be coming back after he's done his international duty. He's currently with Colombia's under 20s. The plan is basically for the Villa to look at him. Then they'll decide whether he'll train for the rest of the season with the first team or under 21s, and then with a view of pre-season him being in Emery's squad and seeing what happens then.
Yeah, Favelar's asking about Courtney Hawes, but I'm assuming he's not going to come back into play at this point.
No.
Okay. Right then, let's go, Jacob. Thank you ever so much for joining me. A lot of people watching, 1,626 with us live across the various platforms, which is really big numbers. So yeah, much appreciated, Jacob, that you've come on to chew the transfer fat with me. People just love transfer shows, don't they? That is what people care about ultimately in January and August. They don't care about the game.
They do. I know. It's also like I was speaking to my editor the other day. I was like, I've got this ready to go. I've got this. He's like, mate.
Don't worry about it.
Just it's all no one cares about anything else. Just do transfers. But yeah, I thank you for having me on, and apologies for if I've become a bit circumspect and politician-wise in my answers. I'll promise I'll get back to being normal next month.
Have you kept some stuff back there? Have you?
No.
I'll be sure to get to the bottom of that in about 10 seconds when we're off air.
No, nothing.
No, okay, I won't ask. All right then. Right. Thanks to everyone that's joined us live, and thanks to everyone that will go on and watch and listen as well. Do all the things I talk about every single time: liking, subscribing with post notifications on, reviews on audio platforms, and 5 stars as well. If you're enjoying the show, if you have enjoyed this show and you've taken something away from it, then if you could do something nice for us, that would be much appreciated. Needs to be a match preview really tomorrow at some point. Not sure on earth when I'm going to do that, being in London, but I'll sort it out and try and get a match preview out there at some point tomorrow. So watch out for that. Keep your eye on our socials as well to find out when everything is coming. Go back and watch the post-match show that Jacob and I did earlier, looking back on the Celtic victory and what that means for Villa, and their success in the Champions League has been brilliant this season. So do go back and give that show a watch or listen as well. Jacob's off to make loads of phone calls again and tell me the latest of what's going on that he didn't tell us on that show. Have a good night. Up the Villa.